Picking a fight was actually a lot harder than I expected it to be because the fight that I ended up choosing isn't even my favorite one. My favorite ones being Ryan versus Indiana. You guys know how much I love that machete line about tanking the hit and hitting them with something stronger. Rand versus Anak. That's just a classic. Shout out to the workshop. I'm actually a huge fan of JVG, Juvial Grace versus Kaiser Name Hunter. I really like the way that he's on the blue orb, kind of bobbing and weaving through her weapon needle inventory. But I actually ended up going with Data Jahad versus Baam, and here's why. There's some other contenders that I really liked. I actually like Yuri and Karaka and some other ones, but the reason that I went with this one is because I think it ticks off, if not all, most boxes that I think is required for a good and important, impactful, and kind of iconic fight in a series like this, like a graphic novel, if you will, because the way you write fights and do fights for like an anime, a game, and stuff are all different, and a book are all different, but in your graphic novel type style. And I think this has good stakes, good tension, good build up. I do think what could happen if either character loses is important, and I do like some of the lasting impact that it has throughout the series. So let's talk about it. Y'all talking time just tick away. You ain't clocking hours on the day. All that watch is stopping what you claim. Dollar crosses Rio got me name. Hoping God just get me out this game. This is also one of those battles and moments in time where you kind of have to contextualize what was going on. I would honestly imagine maybe if you were a new reader or you kind of caught up during the third season or the last station or something like that, this may have not meant as much to you, but allow me to kind of just go back in time a little bit. This is kind of before the kind of boom of Fast Pass and stuff like that. There was still like the Korean Raw that will come up, but this is kind of really around that time Fast Pass was probably kind of coming out and being conceptualized, but I was late to Fast Pass. I didn't even know it was out for a couple of weeks or so or months. So I could have just not known it existed yet. That being said, the discussions and discourse were basically on a week-to-week basis, so everybody was on the same page. Is what I'm getting at here. And that created for like actual hype, and nobody could actually kind of hold knowledge that they have from future chapters over your head because we were pretty much all here together at the same time. And on a regular meeting on a regular one of the 13 Great Wars and what Simi calls the sword art arc, the hidden floor, the data floor, was honestly a big deal, and seeing Baam freak out the way that he does was crazy. And you're like, okay, we're finally good. Yes, it's not King Jahad full power or fully grown Khun Eduan slaying all the hoes, but it's like this is on a regular as they were climbing, just like the one we're following. There was so much intrigue there, and the first round didn't go in Bam's favor, and Khun Eduan was the one that was training him, teaching him so many things that kind of made Bam seem somewhat incompetent up to this point when you compare him to other irregulars, even though he's still a monster. Like, all of that build up was extremely vital as well. Now, the fight itself. So Bam's training, we learn a bit about V, we learn a bit about tension, we learn about Shinsu qualities and Shinsu shape and everything like that. So that was all important. Raken and Dorsey and Aguero also trained too. And what you have to notice immediately when this fight's gonna start, and that raw "shall we begin, little monster," like it was really looking like Bam was fighting up a weight class for real. And the game basically was you either beat Jahad straight up or you can break these three orbs, and when you break these three orbs you win the game. And what I've always liked about Tower of God is they always give the kind of weaker character a fighting chance by letting them be able to win a game, an engagement, a test, whatever the case may be, through different means than straight up confrontation. So if Bam was good enough to just evade and break those three orbs without particularly confronting Jahad, that was possible, which goes to show you probably the discrepancy in power that they have, which Bam started to close slowly but surely as he started to understand things about himself and accept some of the monstrous parts within him. And when he entered the true self mode, uses Stardust and all those things. We got crazy techniques like Cosmos, the Jahad like air palm style. We learned about the like Shinwan Ryu and the kind of the idea of the lightning pill to read on, but you can irregulars can kind of boost themselves without having to take something that will kind of make their body hurt later, a la Data Machine, a la Khun Ran. And I was like, we are getting a lot here. This is really good.
And seeing those guys go at it, I think the choreography was pretty good. Some of the punches and stuff, some of the techniques were crazy, like I mentioned earlier. Bam using the orbs and the sparkles to block some of those punches and attacks, I really thought was cool. And Jahad getting a little more interested and getting a little more intrigued by this little boy, coming to fight him. And and then you have to think about how it ends and what it culminates to. And what's really good about this to me is the irregular versus the irregular thing. This is one of the few times where even though Bam ended up kind of showing out and still showcasing how great he was scared. He was fearful. Even when he pulled up on Jahad, it's like, yo, I don't know if I can do like I don't really see that from Bam like that. Yeah, he could be a little meek and timid and stuff, but I would argue he's genuinely confident in what he's doing, or at the very least, he believes that he's taking the right path. And here, there's so much doubt, so much uncertainty in his eyes and in his actions here, which I think really enhanced the moment, because I'm like, that Jahad could really pack him, because I even think Khun Eduan could do it, the data version at the very least, and we don't even know what the sworn enemy Urek Mazino could do. Like, there was all those things in the background too going on. Obviously Rachel being not Arlene, what's her name, Icarus, like so many moving parts while this fight is happening. I do think the fight itself is pretty good. The choreography and like how the action sequences play out is solid. It's not my favorite in the series, but I do think it's good. It's good enough and it serves its purpose. I really like the fact that it's kind of an inconclusive battle. I think some people will make the case Jahad won. Some people make the case Bam won. For me, it's kind of like not applicable. Like, it's null and void. They didn't finish the fight. So to me, it's a draw. Because it looked to me like they could still keep going. I believe that Jahad could probably regenerate limbs, or even as early as that, there was a way for him to heal himself. But because this is just data, this is just O's and ones, if you will. When his arm got erased by that attack, he could not bring it back, which put him at a disadvantage, but he can still fight. But when Bam was floating for a bit, he still got back up too, so they could still keep fighting. But what happened next? Who pulled up? Jahad. You see where I'm going? Like, the hype just kept stacking and stacking upon one another. Like, okay, we're on this floor. Oh my god, or a regular data. Oh my god, Bam versus Jahad part 1. Okay, that didn't go well, but he's being trained by Aguero's dad. That's so crazy. And then now they're confronting each other one again. Bam doesn't look good for Bam. Maybe he should just not fight him and break the orbs. Wait a minute. Oh my god. He got the Torns. He said he had the power of the administrator. Like, it was a constant crescendo to its ultimate climax of Jahad pulling up and saying, didn't I kill you already? And then after the second Thorn fragment activating to save him. So I really do think you can make cases for some other fights. I really do think Rand versus Anaka is really good. I do think Indiana and Rand versus is good. I do think Lane versus Bam is really good, and some other ones. But I would argue that this is kind of the most impactful fight, in the sense that I think after this moment, Bam's growth rate and leaps and bounds and confidence went through the roof, because true self, getting those little horns and stabbing himself to get the power of the administrator is really what catapulted his strength to the next level, to do things like damage Calivan, even though he hit him somewhere where Hajin Sung had already hurt him. I think this is the part where he really starts to hit that massive growth rate. But you might think differently. But what do you guys think? Do you think that this is the best fight in Tower of God? Do you not think about it? I think we might have to have a stream about some of the best fights in Tower of God for sure. But that being said, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Like, subscribe, hit the bell of dawn, and yeah. Patreon, gang-a-lang-a-lang. Shout out to the CBL, shout out to the Priest of Fire, but especially the 5th Zen Gods. Big shout out to Miles, Simi, Cayenne, Sonny Kathapali, Scobe, Triss. Shout out to Revenant, Big Abdel, and Chromizone. Y'all support is greatly appreciated.
In my drugs, pour it in my cup, sitting in my darkness with my ghouls, we pouring up. I don't really give a fuck, I don't really have a say. You tell me that I suck, I tell you get up out my face. You got tears in your eyes, looking like a fool.